Just answering questions with WAPTech. Yesterday I did a video about an assertion on the internet that is bullshit. The assertion is that COVID-19 vaccine has identical characteristics in some way to a very simple thing, at least chemically speaking, a mixture of carbon and oxygen atoms only. The statement that people made was that the vaccine is literally just graphene oxide, or at least 99.9% or something. Now, this is something that's easily checked, and of course, this has been checked. Every place that brought in vaccines is required by health officials to test the vaccine to make sure it's not tainted. It's stored in cold storage. It has to be checked to see if it's gone bad. And part of that means that you have to confirm it's actually a vaccine instead of a vial with saline solution. That's it. Pretty simple thing. So this has been tested to death. Now, a person somewhere on the planet named Pablo, who is a chemistry expert and a professor at a college, received a vial from someone. We don't know who it is because he says he doesn't. He says it was anonymously given to him. He was told that it had to be vaccine inside of the bottle. Maybe it had a label or not. And that he found stuff in it that wasn't what you would expect to have in a vaccine. But remember, he's not an expert in vaccines or anything, so we have to at least say, hey, I hope he double-checked this. So he found a single vial that has no chain of custody or chain of evidence, and he said that it contained something that shouldn't be there. And from that, all vials of vaccine cannot contain vaccine anymore. They have to contain graphene oxide. Now, why did he come to the conclusion it had to be graphene oxide? Because he studied it in the most scientific way possible to determine the atomic makeup of something. He looked at it under a microscope. He then looked on the internet at graphene oxide and said, yeah, looks like it. So it has to be graphene oxide. And I'm not oversimplifying it. Eventually, he only admitted to the fact that he basically got this from some guy in an alley after he was questioned about it. On the face of it, this entire story is horseshit. But it isn't. You and I could do the same thing and make the same ginormous mistake Pablo did. And simply do something simple. Hi, somebody gave me a vial of this stuff. It says it's the vaccine. I can't confirm it. Do you have one of those empty vials that some people have gotten as a souvenir? I want to test the residue in it to see what's in it because I want to see if I'm just fooling myself because it comes back looking like oxygen carbon mix and nothing else. Never mind that it's supposed to contain mRNA, messenger ribonucleic acid, a bunch of hydrocarbons. Carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. Well, it's similar to it. Yeah, it'd be similar to it. That would be what I expect. But okay, did he do that test? There is no assertion anywhere attributed to this person that he did that test. It doesn't look like he did a follow-up test. He's very concerned about this. We're totally being, aliens. But I'm not going to check it a second time? I'm not going to assume that maybe I was handed a vial with bullshit in it? I'm not going to do the simple thing of just asking somebody else to do the same test? Oh, by the way, every health department everywhere has already done these tests because these tests randomly, when they get them, they do the same test I'm describing. They test what's in the vial. Next, I didn't say anything about any other vials. I just said that his test was contaminated, and this is not a reliable source. Now, the second thing you'll see people talk about is a lady who is over the top about being pro-Trump and go get him, and she's a chemistry expert. No, in her case, she's a psychology expert, which is more unremoved, just totally removed from this, who said that who's being used on the internet and on TV, because she's pretty, I guess, but also maybe because she's smart, to present evidence that it totally has to be graphene oxide. If you're not aware of why a person would keep using graphene oxide, it's called search engine optimization. If you tell a lie often enough, people will look for it. And if you don't use consistent wording and messaging, they won't know to look it up. The idea is you create a unique but easily typed in thing to increase its page rank. Just like advertising your porn site. Anyway, this person who is has a degree in psychology, meaning she might know how to manipulate people, is presenting evidence that's based on this idea that I'm going to present. You take a sample of this material from the vial, supposed to be more than 3 or 6 or whatever. You expose it to a light source that can be infrared, ultraviolet, normal light spectrum, X-rays, whatever, and a certain set of the frequencies will be absorbed and others will be bounced back. The absorption and or emission spectrum can be used to figure out what atoms are in it. It's more of an art than a science. If you don't know what you're doing, you have to learn how to do it, to detect each of the different atom types, different molecules, and there's more than one spike for some of them, and find out what's in it. And that will tell you whether or not it's something simple like carbon and oxygen and nothing else, or something complex like messenger RNA. Messenger ribonucleic acid, enzymes. So, I did the video explaining this as much as I felt it was needed to. Somebody who has no experience in the subject making assertions, and we're not being given all the data, and another person making assertions who's got some knowledge in the area that eventually sheepishly acknowledged that he might have made a mistake, but he doesn't want to say it. So someone said, this is what I said in the video. Your point is based upon the following 2 things. Well, it's actually more than 2. The vials are not 100% reliable. That's not a position to invalidate the study at all. The sample in the vial isn't confirmed as being what the person assumed it is. That invalidates it immediately. You're wrong. You mix up your analysis as 2 of the studies. The preliminary one, he said, wasn't definitive. No, he didn't say it wasn't definitive. He had as much as admitted that he didn't necessarily know that it was the vaccine he was testing. He's invalidated his entire subject. But won't admit it, maybe. I don't know. The next one this person's calling a final study used infrared Raman technology. Did detect spectroscopy peaks from 7 samples at least for something he's labeling G and D. Now, I don't know if you know this, but for some reason the viral imaging for this includes the graph I'm going to describe in a minute that has them labeled G and D. I don't care why, but I'm going to describe the graph. One graph is in blue, and it shows graphite. It has a peak at a labeled frequency range or frequency number or whatever, wavelength, of 1324, and another one at 1599, and another pair that are much lower that are 2600 and 2900 approximately. Now, the second one is orange or dark brown or whatever. It's graphene oxide, and it's at 1328 and 1573, and that second one is higher. They're very different. And a second real spike at 2653. That's how you tell the difference between graphene and graphene oxide, or graphite and graphene oxide. Okay, now we'll just get back to the commentary here. If you want to look up the supposed final study, unless you know what you're looking at, can't evaluate it. But again, I'm going to say this. Every place that's received the vaccine has confirmed it contains vaccine. No one has confirmed any vial that actually had vaccine in it other than these people who have an overt, over-the-top ideological and political agenda screaming pro-Trump stuff for some reason in their foreign language, or maybe it's in English. Maybe I'm just hearing wrong. Everybody else has done the same test, can't reproduce it, meaning we can't find any of this contaminated crap. Where did you get it from? And then when they're asked any probing questions, they get mad and don't answer. Or they tell people, give me some money and GoFundMe. I don't know. I'm just throwing spitballs here. So then the person says this. Beyond your methodology considerations, WAPTech, it's too much coincidence to have these results. Yeah, because if you've ever done any of these tests, I've tested things like exhaust fumes, material, residue. I've worked with a mass spectrometer before. You don't get results that match anything. Why would you test something very complex and only get an indication of carbon and oxygen atoms and nothing else? That wouldn't be possible. Even the little lid being punctured would put some aluminum in it or something like that, wouldn't it? There'd be tiny amounts of iron from the syringe needles in the vial. So yeah, I think that's very suspicious too, which means I think it's fake results, which is also a commentary I've seen before. I looked at other people peer reviewing these people that didn't want to be peer reviewed. It's bullshit. I don't have to listen to you. Let's go on to the next person. Maybe this person wasn't saying anything bad about what I was saying or lying about what I was saying, but that's not the emphasis of the video. Next. You can look at this YouTube channel. He's really cool. He's got some useful information on this subject. Okay. Next. It's in everything. Water, meat, chemtrails, spraying crops. I found some on the exterior of grapes at my supermarket. What is this person claiming he found? He's claiming he found graphene oxide. It's the new chemtrail conspiracy theory. By the way, one of the other things I've studied and helped study and operated the equipment with when it was my turn was analyzing the exhaust fumes coming out of jet aircraft. They're not chemtrails, you knucklehead, and I'm one of the people who did the tests. And I'm also one of the people who did a study, or at least contributed to it, that you guys misquote. I'm one of the sources you guys keep lying about. That's why I get a little pissy about it. You're repeating lies. It's not chemtrails. And every fucking year, someone comes up with another sciencey-sounding thing. This is oxygen and carbon, by the way, we're talking about. No, it's graphene oxide. It's a super high-tech... It's carbon and oxygen. It forms naturally. We're just too stupid to figure out how to do it. It's like a snowflake. We can't build a snowflake, but we can get them when we go outside when it's cold. No, really, it's really hard to make a fucking snowflake. I do want to say big respect for doing the work. Most won't do it. If you keep looking, it's going to cause a major shock and reprogramming societal structure we're taught. No. I'm finding out that you're repeating stuff that you're cutting and pasting from the internet and you do not know what you're talking about. And I want you to stop talking to me from now on. It'll cause temporary mental trauma. No. All I'm finding is that you won't look up stuff. You're literally knocking on the door right now. Keep your sanity. The rabbit hole is deep. This wasn't a deep rabbit hole. This was a shallow puddle of piss. I have Geo in my lab right now. I'm a wealthy business owner and have the money to look for myself. Your channel does a bunch of videos where you do playthroughs of stuff that has kid-themed stuff in it. You do casual games. You're a gamer. You don't have any of this equipment. You don't do any videos on the subject. You haven't identified yourself in any way. Now I think you're just bullshitting here. Let's go. I decided to look for myself. I have the money. I'm rich. The scanning electron microscope confirms the presence of GO, graphene oxide, treated with hydrogen, and then he goes on and on about a cut and paste from a website he grabbed this from. If you can't read the writing on the walls, or at least don't prepare for in case, well, that would be foolish considering the long history of evils of mankind, ferromagnetic structures, etc., etc. You play casual games on YouTube and no one watches your channel. You came to me for attention, and I did a video by your request, and you're refusing to acknowledge that I've shown you a simple thing. People on the internet do not have to provide proof, and they know that someone's going to find out they're lying. In the case of the first guy we talked about here, he's probably a very honest college professor, but he may be a little bit embarrassed to point out that when it was pointed out to him that he said, eventually and admitted, that he tested something he couldn't confirm was what he thought it was. Next, he did, I think, the dumbest way to compare things on the planet. He looked at a picture on the internet and said it looked like what he saw in a microscope, so it can only be what he saw on the internet. That's not how it works. There's no efficacy to this test. The next person is somebody who is over-the-top, ideologically and politically active, and doesn't give a shit about facts, and has promoted bullshit stories before, but we're supposed to trust her. Next, we got someone here claiming to now be a very big, powerful businessman with access to all sorts of cool equipment that you could just take a college course for I think, about $200 and get access to the equipment and actually really test this. I'm going to be blanking your comments on the channel, and I don't want you posting anymore for that. Stop lying. Okay? This is something that can be easily checked. I will do an evaluation of the spectrographic testing and see if it's valid. I have some experience in it. A little. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with it.